What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be looking at the brand new suppressor that was added with Season 3 Reloaded, and this is the Scratch 20L. And this one is basically the answer to the ECS Requieter Suppressor that was added at the beginning of Season 3, but that suppressor can only be used on SMGs, whereas the Scratch 20 can be used on assault rifles, battle rifles, marksman rifles, and LMGs. Now, before we get into that, just a quick note about the ECS Requieter Suppressor. They've actually nerfed this in the Season 3 Reloaded update as well, so it now aligns properly with the description. If you guys remember, when this first came out, it states in the cons that this laser is visible when ADS. However, pre-patch, the laser beam itself was not visible. You could only see the dot where the person was aiming, which you're almost never realistically going to be seeing in an in-game situation. And then the other thing is if they were aiming directly at you and you were looking at them, there would be a little blue glow from them. But the beam itself was not visible, despite the fact that the cons stated it was visible. After the Season 3 update though, they fixed this so it now aligns, and as you can see here, that laser beam on the ECS suppressor is visible, but it's pretty muted. It's definitely not a super bright laser beam like some of the other lasers in the game, but it's definitely there now, and you may want to reconsider using that suppressor on SMGs from now on. In either case, let's get back to the main topic of the video, which is the new Scratch 20L suppressor. And with this one, just like with the ECS Requieter, not only does this keep you off the radar, it also helps with firing aim stability. And you can see we've got two little arrows indicating that this helps quite a bit with firing aim stability. However, unfortunately, when it comes to firing aim stability, it's not displayed anywhere in the advanced stats. So we don't really know exactly how much it's helping, but it appears to be helping a fair amount at least. And the only downside to this is it harms our aim down sight speed. And initially I was thinking, well, why would I do that when I can just stick to the Shadow Strike suppressor? Until I looked at the advanced stats, and you can see it only harms our aim down sight speed by 1%. So we're looking at about 3 milliseconds for most of the guns in the game, which is a negligible difference. And as a result, effectively speaking, there are no cons attached to this. Also, this one doesn't have an attached laser like we have with the ECS Requieter, and it's available on far more weapons than the ECS Requieter is. And at least based on what we're seeing here, this now seems like the obvious choice over the Shadow Strike suppressor, which just keeps you off the radar with no additional upsides, but also no downsides attached to it, because you may as well squeeze out some firing aim stability. But let's have a look at exactly how much this firing aim stability is helping, keeping in mind this is quite a subtle stat that definitely helps more on some guns than others, but I just took essentially just a random selection of a few guns so we can look at with and without this suppressor. And let's start it off with the BP50. As we can see here on the right hand side with this suppressor, it's looking like it's got a bit of a straighter line upward with less side to side deviation off of that line, which is typically what firing aim stability is going to do for you. And while I definitely wouldn't say that there's a significant difference between these recoil patterns, if you made me choose between them, I would definitely be leaning toward the right-hand side. Next, for a different style of recoil with an assault rifle, I chose the MTZ-556. And with this one, I'd say the difference is less obvious, but if you look at those initial shots fired, on the right-hand side, they tend to be much more in a vertical line compared to the left-hand side, where there's more of that side-to-side bounce, especially on those initial shots fired. Again, not a huge difference, but maybe a slight one there. Then in the battle rifle category, I chose my personal favorite at the moment, which is the SOA Subverter. And again, maybe a very slight difference here with slightly less side-to-side deviation with our recoil pattern when using this suppressor compared to not using the suppressor. And then finally, I pulled out my current favorite LMG after the Season 3 Reloaded update, which I will be doing a full-on revisit in the not-too-distant future. This is the DG58 LSW. And this one does have quite a bit of gun kick, so there's a lot of side-to-side bounce both with and without the suppressor. Honestly, I'm not even really seeing much of an improvement with the suppressor on this one. Maybe some of those gaps are slightly reduced, but it's kind of hard to tell with just 4 recoil plots here. And this is just meant to be a quick look, not a super scientific study or anything, just a quick comparison side by side. But essentially what I found out with these recoil tests is it's not like using this suppressor is going to make an inaccurate gun suddenly super accurate. You aren't going to notice a massive difference in your recoil with or without this, but it appears in most cases there's at least a slight improvement here. And when you consider the fact that, once again, that downside is negligible on this, if you're planning on using a suppressor anyway, there's really no reason to not use the Scratch 20L suppressor over the typical alternative, which was the Shadow Strike suppressor. And as a result, I'm definitely switching to this as my substitute for the Shadow Strike suppressor. Any of the previous builds that I did use with that Shadow Strike, I'm now going to be using the Scratch 20L because there's really no good reason not to. Now, of course, these are just my opinions based on the breakdown that I've done here, and this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. First off, how are you guys feeling about this new suppressor, the Scratch 20L? Is this something you're going to be switching to on a lot of your class setups, or will you just stick with your previous stealth builds? And then also, on top of that, I am curious to hear what you guys think about the fact that they have slightly nerfed the ECS suppressor, so it's now in line with what the description states. Is this something that's going to cause you to switch away from that ECS suppressor now, or do you think you'll still be sticking with it? Just let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.